Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today we're going to continue series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project. I got a fun and interesting video for you guys today because we're going to be talking about the one core more than any other I would love to see come to MiSTer so everyone can enjoy the hardware in the library. And this is in a direct response to the Philips CDI core being in active development. I was very surprised but yet happy to see that actually happen on MiSTer FPGA. But everyone's wondering when a 3DO core is going to come, and a lot of people like to make fun of that console even though it is great. The one console I never hear anyone mention, it always bums me out, is the NEC PC-FX. Sure, it doesn't have the same level of library that something like the PC Engine or TurboGrafx does, but it definitely is a platform that exists that has a handful of amazing games that I'm pretty sure 99 out of 100 you have not played. And that is just an absolute bummer and something that I would really love to see rectified on the FPGA side of things. Because when NEC released the PC-FX, a successor console to the PC Engine, they really went hard on FMV video as well as 2D gaming. They made this thing an absolute 2D beast as far as the capabilities of a 32-bit system are concerned. It is a massive tower of plastic, a very weird and charming system, but one that I feel like most people have never played before. Leave me a comment and tell me if you've ever experienced it. Now on the hardware side of things, it uses an NEC V810 running at 21.5 MHz, and that would be totally within the limits of what MiSTer FPGA can run, both in complexity as well as speed. It has a Hudson HU62 chip. That's basically going to be the custom video hardware on the video side of things. It's going to actually put an image up on the screen, and it has 2 MB of system RAM, definitely also underneath the overhead as far as actual capacities are concerned when it comes to the capabilities of the Cyclone 5 on the Terasic board. And a 2-speed CD-ROM drive, which actually presents a lot of problems on real hardware but could be rectified in something like an FPGA core. But there are a ton of amazing games on the PC Engine, that's for sure, and I don't want you to think that the PC-FX is a hidden gem in the same way that the PC Engine could be. This was not a success as a follow-up console, but even though it didn't succeed at market, it doesn't mean there's not a lot to love here. There's so many different unique games on the PC-FX. Something like Team Innocent here, I did a video on this over 2 years ago, is basically Resident Evil before Resident Evil would ever actually exist. It is a light-hearted, kind of charming, quote-unquote survival horror game taking place across 3 different spaceships and different space colonies, and you basically have to navigate around like you would in Resident Evil, fighting enemies and solving different puzzles within the environment. But I absolutely love the look visually of PC-FX games. You have these higher resolution pre-rendered backgrounds along with sprites on the screen versus something like polygons in Resident Evil, and this again came out before RE ever existed from Capcom, and these are the type of games that I'm sure none of you have actually played. I do own a PC-FX and all the footage you're seeing here was captured on real hardware, but that is definitely a chore, keeping it running and making sure you can collect the games. But if you've never heard of Team Innocent before, I really wouldn't be surprised, but this really does actually end up being the precursor to a lot of what survival horror would become as far as the overall gameplay mechanics are concerned, and it is a game that's getting an active translation right now and I would love more people to experience. But definitely the marquee game on the PC-FX has got to be Zenki. It is an absolutely gorgeous 2D beat 'em up. The graphics on display here are just so lush and entertaining. It really looks like that classic 32-bit 2D sprite work and background work we got, and it is just a game that you definitely need to play at least once. And I love how it can kind of use that motion JPEG in the background to make it look like the entire screen is breaking away and just falling out as an actual video. It's impressive hardware, it just didn't get the biggest library, and honestly NEC and Hudson Soft guessed wrong when they thought enhanced 2D was going to be what the market went towards and not 3D like PlayStation 1 or Sega Saturn did, and that's why this console really ended up failing. They leaned in a little bit too heavily on the 2D FMV dating sim market, but there's still probably a good 12 to 14 games on PC-FX that are absolutely worth playing and stuff that no one ever is going to get a chance to play outside of software emulation. And when I say Zenki is an absolute 2D beat 'em up classic, I 100% mean it. It's got gorgeous lush animations, amazing sprites, everything you want out of a beat 'em up, and it's only available on the PC-FX. It even has a great soundtrack as well. I'm going to give you a 45-second sound sample to get you excited about the possibility of a core, and I'll be back to talk more about the feasibility of one. Awesome soundtrack, awesome game, just a 10 out of 10 as far as the PC-FX is concerned, and something I would love everyone to actually play on MiSTer FPGA so they can get that real hardware experience. Although the good thing is MedDefend is quite competent at emulation as well, so you can experience them. But the PC-FX has a very strange library. Some games are a 10 out of 10 in a fun department kind of context, but a 5 out of 10 actually in the graphical capabilities. It is a really strange system. Something like this game right here, I'm going to pronounce it once because it's not easy. Rarula. It is not a very pretty game indeed, but it is a ton of fun. It's basically a 2D side-scrolling Metroidvania style game where you unlock different characters, different levels and power-ups to traverse through the world. And this is absolutely stuff that could run on MiSTer FPGA. But the reality is right now there just isn't a developer out there to take this on, and that more than anything is what MiSTer FPGA really needs in the ecosystem. People keep talking about new FPGA boards that are more powerful, and that's all said and good, and I do like talking about that as well. But the reality of the situation is hardware is only as good as the people that are programming for it, and right now we just don't have a ton of people programming FPGA cores. The developers we have are amazing and have given us some incredible things, but honestly this is kind of where MiSTer could improve in the future, trying to get more developers on board and just be welcoming to more experiences. I'm not saying that the ecosystem and community isn't welcoming, they very much are, but we could still use some more talent. And you'll see here this game definitely has English translation, so it's easy to play, and now that we unlock that frog character we can traverse this pond and move on to a different area in the game. But again, the hardware on offer here is just so fun to look at. Something like Last Imperial Prince, an RPG game with actual real-time battles. It's a fun game to play, and some of the parallax scrolling and 2D work in here does everything right. It'll rival something like the Sega Saturn in my opinion as far as pure 2D prowess is concerned, all in a system that you've probably never actually seen in real life. And I can't even remember where I first heard about the PC-FX, probably in import magazines back in the day. I've owned one or more than one for a very long time, and while I don't play it every single year, it is something I always love to trot out. And again, this would be great on the preservation side of things as well, because the NEC PC-FX wasn't the best-selling console, so it's not like there's a ton of units out there. I wouldn't classify it as rare, but it definitely isn't going to be super common, and working on these things is an absolute nightmare. The case on this thing is 20 out of 10 overbuilt to the most insane degree. And while the motherboards are actually relatively stable so long as you actually recap them every once in a while when it is required, getting games for this console can be a metric pain in the ass, because it does not like to play burnt games whatsoever. For the most part, you have to absolutely have original games to put inside of the console. Something like Team Innocence, like a $40 to $50 game all day long, but something like Zenki that I showed you before is in the 4-digit price category at this point in time, and it's just down to this thing not liking recordable media whatsoever. There is no copyright protection on it, but if you do not keep up with the bitrate for those FMV videos, they're going to stutter and they're going to freeze, and honestly, I'd love to see a snack adapter for PC-FX. It's a really nice controller and something I'd love to have when I'm playing my MiSTer FPGA, and that really is the thing about the NEC PC-FX. Yes, it failed, yes, it doesn't have the deepest library around, but there's a good dozen games here that are absolutely worth playing, and in some instances like Zenki, some of the best examples in their generation of the genre that they're in, and I would love to see this on MiSTer FPGA, because it's not just like MiSTer exists for us to have a new way to play our favorite consoles of all time. It really is an encyclopedic kind of project where you get to experience something new, like the Dick Smith Wizard PC. Just wanted to use that name because it always makes me laugh. I didn't even know that thing existed until I saw a MiSTer FPGA core for it, so it basically introduced me to a new platform, which, while honestly not something I'm going to spend a lot of time with, did kind of expand my knowledge base. But something like PC-FX with Zenki here, you're going to spend a half an hour, 45 minutes playing one of what I would consider the best beat 'em up of its generation, and a game that probably 9 out of 10 of you don't even really know exists. And that is the promise of MiSTer FPGA. It's not just that we could potentially get a MiSTer 2 maybe in late 2025, early 2026, it's also that we have hardware right now that could complete cores if developers wanted to work on them to give you another awesome piece of gaming history. For sure, that leave me a comment down below and tell me what's the one core if you could wave a magic wand would appear tomorrow, but we'll see you next time. Bye bye.